It's our 1-year anniversary! Woohoo!
Woo,
Welcome
yay.
everyone to the Frosty Canucks podcast. I'm your host, Jason, along with Steve.
Chives is in heat.
You said at the beginning you weren't actually going to say that.
I don't know. I couldn't think of anything better. You do realize the thing I say to you at the beginning of the podcast is the first thing that pops into my head, right?
Oh dear.
My cat has been a little white gremlin of terror for the past few days.
You may hear her throughout the podcast, and I will probably not be able to edit around it.
Yeah, I've been trying to deal with it. The vet gave me like a petting technique that's supposed to like unheat her. I don't understand how it works. She's been a lot quieter the last couple of hours, but it's usually in the evening when she starts to whine at the top of her lungs, so we'll see. It's on the greener pastures, though. What does the 1-year anniversary mean, Jason?
The 1-year anniversary means, for no particular reason, that this podcast is now also available on YouTube.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Well, what were you going? What'd you want?
No. I didn't have anything. I was just a setup for you to go off of. I was hoping that you had something to say.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you were trying to get something else. Yes.
No.
So, this podcast will be available on YouTube starting next week. All the old episodes will be slowly released starting on Sunday every 3 hours to hopefully bypass YouTube's spam thing so that the channel doesn't get deleted and then everything that I've said is a lie. So,
Yeah, I really hope that doesn't happen. Just because uploading our back catalog in order would be nice. It'll be easier for everything going forward, but uploading 25 episodes sequentially is a huge pain in the butt, so.
That is true. That was the big project that kept me away from art for a while, so. And then after I was done it, I didn't really feel like doing anything.
I was going to say, I'm sure that nobody...
I was tired.
Oh, no, she's rolling around on the ground again. Oh, shit. Okay, never mind. She's definitely still... I got to aggressively pet her after the podcast. She looks like she's tweaking out over there. This is apparently called flirtatious rolling. It's supposed to attract males. There is no male cats here, though.
That's a good thing.
I just think it looks stupid as hell. It's kind of like when you give cats catnip, except... No, actually, it's exactly like when you give cats catnip.
Yeah, except that ends eventually.
Yeah, well... I mean, this will end eventually, too. I just don't...
Okay, but I meant in a shorter period of time.
Yeah. Anyway, before we get into our kind of, I guess, main topic, which isn't really a topic, but do you want to touch on the fucking review bombing of Deathloop?
Yeah, so Deathloop has been review bombed to hell and back as of late, so both on PC and the PS5 for different reasons.
I was going to say, I feel like the PC ones are, some of them at least, the ones I have read are all, I think, justified. And these are people who are reviewing the game negatively for the same reason that I refused to buy it at launch. That was that Arcane hasn't released a game without performance issues at launch since Dishonored back in, I guess, 2011.
Impressive. 10 years of poor
Yeah,
launches.
well, so Dishonored was built on Unreal Engine 3, I believe. So, and it was when it was pretty mature and late in its development life cycle. Whereas Dishonored 2 and Prey and now Deathloop were all released on, I think it's called the Void Engine. I forget the name of Ark's internal engine. I think it's the Void Engine. Either way, Arcane's internal engine just does not have smooth launches on anything. I don't know why. Out of all of Bethesda's game companies that they own, it seems like only id knows how to release games that actually run on stuff without running like shit at launch.
Well, I mean, when you have the role model of Bethesda, it's like, well, you don't set the bar very high, so...
Yeah, so it's like Bethesda's
does anyone
stuff
else have
always
to?
launches like crap. Arcane stuff usually launches like crap.
Yeah.
Machine Games is fine, I think. id's is always really good. Their stuff always hums really well.
Yeah, I don't hear too much about Machine Games when they launch.
Oh, I guess I've never played any of their horror stuff from the people who are making the spoopy game. But yeah, so like the performance issues are a big one on the PC, and then part of the reason the performance issues are a thing is because on PC they've also included Denuvo, and Denuvo's a piece of shit.
Oh no, when will they learn?
Give it a couple of months, Denuvo's going to probably be removed like it always is.
So why even bother?
Yeah, and then that'll fix some of the fucking performance issues. And it'll be like a patch or two by then as well. Pick up the game for 20-30% off.
I never understand it because the people who are going to buy your game are always going to buy your game, and you're just pissing off them.
Yeah.
But then the people still who are going to be
pirating
it are just going to wait. Play the waiting game, and it's going to happen eventually. So.
Well, so that's the thing. Like, Denuvo, there's been numerous articles that have come out to this effect, but like Denuvo only stops hackers for like a week or less. Or crackers, I should say, not hackers. So the people who are going to crack the game, they can do it in about a week or less, and they continually do it a week or less, regardless of what changes Denuvo makes on their end. And so it's like all you're effectively doing is punishing your customers who are paying with this extra set of DRM that makes the game run worse and makes their computers run worse. So it's like it's fucking stupid.
It makes no sense from a consumer's end. It doesn't even help the developer in the end.
Well, that's the thing. It's been shown numerous times. The studies almost never get published, but the ESA keeps trying to prove that like, there's like a link between like piracy and anti-pirate or whatever the fuck. And like he keeps coming back saying like they're not going to pirate the fucking games. And if they are, they weren't going to buy it. So
yeah.
If someone has the intention of buying the game, they're never going to pirate the game, or they're almost never going to pirate the game, and some people who pirate games end up buying them in the end anyway. Yeah, there's not a good reason to put this shit in.
Nope. It's really silly.
Metacritic has been removing some of the negative reviews, though, because the score was at like 2, and then it was at 4 this morning, and now it's almost 6 at our time of recording.
Yeah.
So either removing or hiding the reviews that are negative.
I remember reading some yesterday that are no longer here, which is kind of sad because they were pretty damn funny. It was something along the lines of like, Microsoft developed game on PS5? No thank you. I'm like, who cares?
Man, how can you be so married to a brand? God damn. I mean, like, okay, I was going to say the same thing I said to you earlier. I used to be like that when I was a teenager. I'm almost 30 now. I don't really give a shit about brands. I like fucking run ad blocker on my computer. I don't like watching ads at all. I fucking hate most companies. So I can't imagine standing up for a company like that. It makes no sense to me at all.
Sorry, I'm just reading some of the reviews, trying to find a funny one. From user yes, that is correct. Pretty much just a shameless, dishonored rehash that manages to be worse in every way. Game is on rails, looter shooter with uninteresting gameplay.
Awful gameplay, stupid AI, PS4 graphics, cannot turn off motion blur, nothing more to say, this is bad. I thought you couldn't turn off motion blur on any console games.
No, you can. I turn it off all the time.
They give you options now on consoles?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. After Great Corvo, Altano, and Morgan Yu, they come with this shallow character, silly aesthetic. Their upcoming game with vampires looks even worse. What happened, Arcane? Bought both Dishonored games day one with all DLC and Prey, but I'm not touching this one. Wait, but if that means you didn't touch this one, how did you... Wait, hold on a second. Right. Metacritic removed this man.
I hope you are happy, Bethesda, with your dealings with Microsoft. I will give you this review as a gift from me because of your partnership with Microsoft. What the fuck? That's not even about the game. Get him out of here.
That are in Russian and Spanish, and I can't read either of those.
Yeah. Wait for the bargain bin? Question mark?
Game seems fun, but hard crashes on PS5 after about 30 minutes. That's kind of legitimate.
That's fair.
That's something that even I, with Prey, was an issue. Remember, a bunch of people reviewed Prey really negatively at launch. I don't think it ever really escaped the shadow of the negative reviews it got at launch because it did. It ran like a complete shit show, even on console.
Yeah, it took forever to load.
Yeah, well, it's just I'm looking now and like Prey on PS5 79, Prey on PC 82. That's a game that I like once it was actually like patched and cleaned up a bit was like really good. But like at launch, it was fucking shit 3000. So I'm gonna pick it up later, like much later. Well, maybe not much later, but certainly I'm gonna wait until like Denuvo gets removed and it gets a number of patches, and then I can play it. That thing is that like the recommended specs are a little bit over what my computer can handle. The like minimum specs on the processor side is where that's where the Ryzen 5 1600X, not the 1600, but like that's what they recommend as a minimum. I'm like, oh shit. And then I got everything else that meets the max, like the recommended stuff, even the graphics card. I got the 2060 on my machine, so I'm like, okay. I guess it's been like what, three or 4 years since I upgraded my CPU, so I must be getting.
I'd imagine it's because this is just made for the PS5. And probably will just be made for the Xbox Series X, so it's gonna be a system pusher.
Yeah, well, it's just it's one of the big things and why I wanted to get a 2000 series card when I did buy a new graphics card last summer was specifically because I could see ray tracing being a big thing that gets included with new games that are coming out. Right now, it's kind of a novelty on PC games, but give it, I don't know, half a console generation and everything's going to be using it. So, well, everything's not indie anyway.
Everything AAA will probably be doing that. It'll become an industry standard. Like, can't launch without this.
Yeah, I expect FreeSync as well to become a bigger thing. How the hell do we describe that? It's a technology that renders the image at the same refresh rate as your monitor. Or your television, if it's using your television. I believe that both of the new consoles allow or have support for FreeSync, so there might be more games coming out that support that feature. So instead of it being like, oh, it runs at 30, it runs at 60, it's like, oh, no, instead it'll just run at whatever. Or maybe it was a thing where the monitor changed its refresh rate to match whatever the GPU. I can't remember which one controls which, but the idea is that the rendering and the monitor would be synced up. That's useful because one of the things that I have to do constantly in games is to use vertical sync, which puts a little bit of input delay on everything, but it prevents screen tearing from happening, which happens when the GPU and the monitor are not aligned in the speed they're rendering their respective images. But with FreeSync, that doesn't happen. It just works all the time.
Anyway, we should probably get on to...
Yeah, I was going to say, we're getting into random PC technical crap now, so...
How did we want to do this? Do we want to go in order of who commented first, or just random?
Random. So I won't know what's coming, but you will, but that's effectively random.
Alright, let's start with... Does Here Come Nico have what it takes to get shortlisted for the Game Awards this year? From Nico.
Fuck you, Nico. Just for context for our audience. Buddy Nico has been, ever since he saw Here Comes Nico, he's like, oh, this is the Game of the Year, 2021. No one in our friends group has actually played this fucking game.
There's only 2 reviews on Metacritic. I'm sorry. Probably not on the shortlist.
Yeah, it's probably not on the shortlist. I don't even know if it'll appear on anyone's Game of the Year list. I don't expect it to appear on many top 10s.
It'll appear on Nico's top 10
list. Yeah, it'll appear on Nico's top 10, even though he hasn't played it. It'll be his number 1, even though he hasn't played it.
Someone should gift him that.
Yo, I know he listens to this podcast. Nico, you're a real piece of shit. You know that?
I love your question, though. It trolled me, that's for sure.
Yeah,
I had to clarify with Steve. Is there a correlation between this, or is this just coincidence?
No, he's been on about this shit for a while now, much to my chagrin. For, I guess, context, we got a bunch of questions for this episode. We're basically just going to go through questions the entire episode, if you haven't figured that out already. So we got tons of viewer questions for our anniversary. Woo!
Yes. Thank you all for submitting them, whether that was through DMs.
Except for you, Nico, you piece of shit.
You don't call our audience that.
I'm not calling our audience that. I'm calling a specific member of our audience a piece of shit.
Don't make me censor you.
Oh, yeah, shoot. I forgot about that.
I don't
So we're
going
to be on YouTube,
and
I don't
It's fine. It is what it is.
Okay.
We'll deal with that once the episodes start flowing down. Who knows? Every episode will be age restricted, and I'll be like, well, we have to change things up.
Thanks, angry moms on YouTube. This YouTube sure as heck isn't doing the filtering themselves.
No.
All right, next question.
From the names? Yeah.
The name's X.
Yes. Do you think developers will run out of ideas for games and stick to re-releasing older games in the near future? We've seen that nostalgia sells, so what's stopping devs from releasing old games as new ones?
They're already doing that.
Yeah, we're already doing that, and the game industry clearly wants to become like the next Hollywood, especially Sony, because they want to go with all their blockbuster hits, and become movies.
Yeah,
well, they're already doing that. So
you're already seeing a lot of that, and I feel like the longer we go on, the more you're seeing, especially with what happened last gen. So the hardware is really similar this generation to last generation. It's basically like the consoles just went through a PC upgrade.
Mm-hmm. There was more of a difference between PS3 and PS4 than...
Yeah, and the same for Xbox 360 to Xbox One.
Well, I mean, the Xbox 360 didn't even have Blu-ray at the time.
Well, I was thinking more like under the hood. The way the
but
processor interpreted the code was different.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're seeing it all the time with like Final Fantasy VII being remade in different parts. Like, I know that's a bit of a different case because they are almost remaking it, but they are taking what was the kind of the foundation from the story and just applying it with a new coat of paint and new bells and whistles.
I mean, they did some significant changes to that, but I feel like you're seeing that as a way to double dip or triple dip in some cases on games that you've already created. And I'm not going to say it's free to make. I mean, with the new generation of consoles re-releases, it is kind of free. But it's like you don't have to come up with a completely new concept, so it's just easier to release a game that you already have conceptualized and made, and you're just, porting the code over to something else. You don't have to go through the idea of like writing the entire story, coming up with the characters, coming up with the gameplay. You just need to move that over.
Mm-hmm.
And then like there have been a few, I think, notable nostalgia cash-ins over the last couple of years. The Spyro Reignited trilogy is a good example. Same with Crash.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy VII Remake. Square keeps re-releasing the older, like the actual original older Final Fantasies over and over again. They've just recently started re-releasing.
Oh, the
I think
pixel ones,
1 through 4.
Yeah. On mobile and Steam?
PC. Yeah.
So I mean, it's pretty much the same. Just
like Yakuza got a bunch of re-releases on the current generation of everything, and is also like entirely available on PC and Xbox Game Pass. Or like Pokemon, they've re-released Generation 1 like fucking 4 times now, I think.
Let's see. Game Boy Advance, and the
Let's
Switch.
Go. And then they did the virtual...
Right. The
virtual
on the 3DS.
consoles. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they put in the ability for you to trade with online netcode.
Poor DS. It got skipped.
Actually, I didn't think about that. You're right. They've had like a version of Gen 1 on almost every handheld console that they've put out over the last 10, 15 years.
Except their best-selling one to date.
Yeah, because that one didn't need the boost. That's why.
Maybe that year. Yeah.
I feel like the games industry has really been kind of copying Hollywood in the same way. They're just re-releasing a bunch of shit, or they announce something in like that's a re-release and people lose their goddamn minds. I can't understand wanting to play those games again.
Sony's PlayStation Showcase had the Uncharted collection that we were talking about, except it's not even as good as what we thought it was going to be. It's only 4 and The Lost Legacy.
Yeah.
So you only get 2 games for probably what's going to be full price.
I feel like the bigger one there is for them getting it onto PC, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because I'm on PC, but I feel like I've been seeing this a lot more because people, like publishers will just dump all their old games onto Steam sometimes.
Well, I mean, you saw that with
like
the Vita. Every game, all those games coming over.
Yeah, well, there's a ton of examples of stuff like that, or like even the Wii U to the Switch, right? Like all of the games were on that were on the Wii U. I think all of them now, actually. Every single game that was on the Wii U has been ported over to the Switch and re-released.
Most, yeah.
And I get that you could make the argument that like porting the games over is kind of different, but fundamentally, it's like in the same vein of just kind of constantly milking something for more and more money. Though I think that like the Pokemon Blue and Red version is probably the single best example of that in the entire industry, where this game has been released functionally 4 times. So that in Generation 6 has a bunch of deliberate homages to Generation 1, and I think so does Generation 5. Not exactly the same thing, but it's still like little plays on nostalgia, right? Mm-hmm. There's probably other game series that I'm not as well acquainted with that people could spot this kind of stuff in that I can't, because I just don't know them that well.
But I mean, we saw it when the new console generation was out and all the games got ported over, like Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition.
What about Demon's Souls, the fucking PlayStation 5's killer app, right, that it launched with? It's a cult classic game. How is that not a nostalgic cash-in?
Yeah, and that was the first game, or first big game. That's what the game industry is doing, and it will continue to do that until forever. No, not until forever.
Like I said, the big thing is that it's easier when you don't have to come up with a completely new everything. It's not free. I don't want people to take what I'm saying here to like, oh, I'm insinuating that it's free. It doesn't take any work, but it's easier than coming up with a completely new concept.
Yep.
So that's why they're gonna keep doing it.
Let's go with Ian from Adventure Rules.
This one I did read. This one I already have an answer for, but you can still read the question.
I found that blogging and streaming have each impacted my gaming habits in different ways, changing them to some degree. Has hosting the podcast impacted how you look at games or how you play games week to week? So, I would say yes, because I wasn't really doing anything with what I was playing, so for me, yeah, it has changed my habits. I'm kind of looking at games a little bit more critically than I was before. Mostly so that I have something to kind of either talk about or complain about or highlight as being something really cool. So I'm looking at those a little bit more. Regarding how I'm playing games week to week, yeah, I think I'm kind of dropping things maybe a little bit quicker than I used to because I feel kind of inclined to be playing something new so that I can bring something fresh to the table, so that I guess the audience doesn't get kind of like, you're talking about XRPG for like 5 weeks or 5 episodes straight. And just because of like work life and balancing the podcast, like personal stuff, it's just like, okay, now I have a little bit less time for gaming in general. I think I spend a little bit, like maybe even a lot less time playing games now than I used to, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so I mean, I look at games a lot more critically. And as Steve has said, if there's something that you think is a piece of shit, you should drop it.
Yeah, I'm a lot better at saying that than I am at following it.
I followed it a couple times.
I'm trying to get better at it. Okay, so my answer, no. For me, the podcast hasn't changed anything at all because I was already blogging very regularly and still am. So my habits for gaming changed, I want to say, over the course of the past 3 to 4 years that I've been doing work on frostylite.ca rather than when I started recording the podcast with Jason a year ago.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This is just like one thing that I have to do on a Thursday evening once every other week. It's like not a huge time commitment or a time sink. This is basically time I would normally use to write articles. Like, that's it. It's not a huge deal.
Now you just gotta like, articulate all your thoughts out.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing that's been actually really interesting is that sometimes if I'm stuck and I can't figure out a way to write my thoughts into an article that actually makes any degree of coherent sense, I'll just end up talking on the podcast, saying my piece and feeling like what I've said on the podcast satisfies what I wanted to say. I have also listened to some of the stuff I've said on the podcast and reincorporated that into my articles. I don't know if anyone has noticed, but I have almost copied what I've said word for word from some of the episodes of the podcast and just rewrote it into an article. when I had already well, it's like I'd already said like what I wanted to say, so instead of just trying to think of a different way to say it, I'm like, oh fuck, I'll just copy myself. Like, who the fuck's gonna call me out on that?
Oh, he's like, plagiarizing his past self. Oh my
God.
I'm
plagiarizing myself. Oh yeah, of course. Like, fucking whatever. That's not a thing, by the way.
I know. I'm just teasing.
Yeah, but as far as like how my way of approaching games has changed while writing for the blog, one of the things that I do try to keep mindful of while doing like the podcasts and blogging is to not spend too long on any one game, or if I do, I have to split it up. For example, when I was reviewing Fantasy Strike, I spent a couple of weeks playing nothing but it, and then I wrote the review for it, and then I cut back the amount of time I was playing it, even though I was still enjoying it, but then it became like a thing that I played for like a couple of hours a week instead of the only thing I was playing. And that's something that happens actually quite regularly. The only time I can get away with continuing to play something for very long periods of time is when I have a back catalog of articles that I want to write that I can slowly chip away at while I continue to play another game. The danger there is that if I run out of articles and then I kind of am not done the other game that I've been sinking a lot of time into, or I've spent so much time in it that I don't even know what to write about it, then I run into problems, which has happened a couple of times. But I think you see that I've kind of got a little more of a balancing act, like with Them's Fighting Herds. I played that for like 3 or 4 months, and it was like 10 to 15 hours a week for that amount of time, and that like was 82 hour or 85 hours total, and I ended up writing like 2 articles about it, so that I thought was a pretty good amount of time, and then like the articles to get out of it. I've been playing Strive for 45 hours so far. I haven't written shit about it. I have an idea for an article for it, but to kind of justify the amount of time I'm spending on it. That's the other thing, is that I don't like spending a lot of time on games without coming away with something to write about them. If it's a quick, smaller game that I just have nothing to say about, I don't mind that as much, but with bigger stuff that I spend more time on, it really pisses me off if I finish it and I'm like, I can't think of an article or whatever, so.
Yeah, you were like that after, what was it, Enter the Gungeon?
Yeah, Gungeon, fucking holy shit. I
You're
rewrote
like,
that review like 5 times before I finally settled on what I thought was not shit and published it.
yeah.
God damn, that pissed me off. That took like a week and a half for me to
You
finish.
kept
Oh,
like
God.
messaging me, going like, I don't know what to write about. I'm like, buddy, I can't help you.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar problem with Wildermyth, which I didn't put as much time into. Like, I've only played it for like 20 something hours, but it feels like I played it for a lot longer because of how just engaging the game is.
Mm.
And I figured out how I wanted to write about it. It's just that I don't have screenshots for it, so I was doing a whole new campaign, but the new campaign it's not hitting in the same notes as the other ones did that were more of what I wanted to write about, so I think I'm just going to write an article and say that none of the screenshots are relevant, and people who are angry about that can kiss my ass. Yeah, so that's certainly something. But yeah, so like in general, I try to balance my games out a little bit, and I will move on to playing new stuff or like games that I intend to play for a really long time, like Hades or Slay the Spires or your Guilty Gear Strives. They're games that I end up playing over several months because I really want to put a lot of time into them, but I have to spread the time out so that I can play other games.
Yeah, you seem to go back to games pretty regularly, like Monster Train and Slay the Spire.
Yeah, I guess the other things with that is it gives you time. That actually is kind of advantageous. Just side tangent. Because when you're trying to learn like a really complex game, sometimes it's like really hard when you're just super uber focused on something to get like you won't necessarily figure out the mistakes. You ever have that where it happen where you're fighting like a really challenging boss in a really hard game and you're like, this is bullshit, I fucking hate this, fuck the developers, blah blah blah, this that, and the other thing, and then you like go to bed, you wake up the next morning,
All the
you
time.
sit down and you beat the boss the very first try.
All the time. I could use the thing about Snorlax and Pikachu from Dark Souls. Died for probably like 4 hours or so straight. Went to bed, and then 3 attempts the following morning, and they were both dead. I was like, cool.
Here's the really cool thing about how your brain works. And I'm not like, I don't have a biology degree or like a whole lot of psychology related stuff for this. I've just kind of like briefly read about this and seen videos and talks on this sort of thing before. One of the really cool things about how your brain works is that while your like active memory isn't working on stuff, your subconscious mind will continue to work on stuff. So if you're struggling with something in a video game and you care about it, your subconscious mind will take over thinking about that thing and will continue to learn about it while you're not actively engaged with whatever the thing is. That gives your brain some time to process whatever it is that you're struggling with. And the other thing is that if you're pissed off, you will start to do worse at things.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get sloppy. So if you take the time to calm down, you'll be able to perform better. So between the fact that you can perform better because you're calmer and the fact that your brain has the ability to just like subconsciously work on stuff without you necessarily being aware of it, those two things together make it so that when you come back the next morning, you can beat the boss the first fucking try. What does this have to do with roguelikes or fighting games? These tend to be more system deep games. As you play the game over several days, that gives your brain time to take what you've learned, internalize it, and work on it. So like,
yeah,
I guess we'll
to the
maybe
point
get to
where
this
that
later, but
it just becomes like muscle memory, or just you don't have to think about it anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, I posted a dust combo on Twitter for May, and I spent like 30 minutes trying to get the buttons correct to do that combo, and then I did it like 4 or 5 times. That's when I got the video and then posted it on Twitter. That's it. That's why I stopped there. And I tried to do it in a match the next day and like kind of got it right, but I fucked up the ending bit of it. So I like practiced it a few more times and then okay, whatever. And like a couple days later, I think I was just playing Mike, or maybe it's just random people online, and then I did the fucking combo perfectly. So it was like one of those things where it's like my brain just needed time to internalize it, and once it did, it was super easy for me to do. So like there's actually like a material advantage to spreading your learning out over several weeks because it gives your brain time to really to do the like deep learning where you just learn all the stuff you're practicing and it actually sticks with you instead of just forgetting it because you're overloading your brain with too much shit. This also works for non-video game related things as well.
Yes, it works fairly well for anyone who's studying in university or something like that, or studying for something. Do it the night before, don't do it the morning of. You're cramming it in at the last minute for that, it doesn't work. cramming it in slightly, or the day before, that's a better strategy than the day of.
Yeah, or just there will be times, I don't know how common this is for other industries, but with IT, you'll be looking at a problem for your entire day where you're like, fuck, I don't know what to do. And you'll wake up in the middle of the night, you don't know what the fucking solution is because your brain's figured it out. So
or in the shower and you're just like, why now?
Yeah, exactly.
All the time. I'm like, fuck.
It seems to be a very familiar thing for IT folks. I gotta assume that like engineers probably run into the exact same thing where they finally work out the fucking problem, or like the thing that they figure out what they need to figure out the problem.
In the middle of a dinner date, just, that's the solution.
Yeah, just whatever.
You're like, honey, what? No,
yeah, that's your like subconscious mind at work right there.
Yeah.
There's actually like a material advantage to playing these types of games in that way anyway, so it's not even like it's a huge deal that blogging and podcasting force me to continually cycle out and play new things so that you guys aren't listening to the same fucking thing over and over again. Though I do deliberately leave out some stuff, like I was playing Them's Fighting Herds for like 4 months straight. I think I only mentioned it on like 3 podcasts.
Something like that, yeah.
Fundamentally, I've mentioned like once for every month I played it. Like, I don't want to bore everyone with a game they don't care about hearing about. But yeah, so podcasting hasn't changed things, but that's because blogging already had, and with blogging, there's definitely a concerted effort to actually try and cycle through things. And that's also part of why I started that and getting really annoyed with games I fucking despise. Is again, like what Jason said, for just moving on to something new when you're not enjoying something.
All right, we're going to do Maggie's
Oh, damn.
crazy list of questions. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do the rapid file. Chris, he gave us like a bajillion questions.
Yeah, he took your... guys, got any more questions? Very seriously. Do you ever drink eggs?
No. People can drink eggs?
Rocky does.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he does in that movie. What's a game release that you're excited about? Wrong answers only.
Oh. Assassin's Creed, whatever the next one is.
Assassin's Creed Live. Damn it, you're stealing that one from me.
Anything released by Ubisoft.
I'm not looking forward to Yakuza 8, whenever that is. Any more?
No, keep going. We're gonna do them all.
No, I meant any more games.
Oh no! Blanket Ubisoft games is the perfect wrong answers only response to that for me.
Tom Clancy's Toilet Simulator.
Exactly.
What's your favorite color?
Gray.
10-year-old me would have said green. Now it'd be orange.
It's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, well, my bedroom was all green when I was a kid, but yeah. Anyway, if you were the final boss in any game, what would your weakness be?
Getting so pissed off that my health goes down.
Being very envious of the hero character when he brings all female party members in.
Jesus Christ, when you say that, you sound like an incel.
I know, that's a joke. Maybe more serious answer, poison.
All right. I'm not changing mine. I like the idea of like you just troll the boss and then he just fucking dies. He gets so mad he has a heart attack and dies.
Oh wait, my weakness is a death note.
Oh yeah.
The hero just pulls out a death note and just is like, "What's your name, boss? I've been told you're the evil one for so many years. I just didn't know what your name was. Thank you for it being written down in the corner with your health bar."
That's too meta.
Just waits 40 seconds. If a cocktail was named after you, what would the ingredients be?
Vermouth. That is it.
Vodka and root beer? Yeah, probably that.
For anyone who's listening, I think vermouth tastes like shit, which is why it would be the only ingredient. I know that one of the Thomases is going to get angry at me for saying this, but no good drink has vermouth in it.
What keeps you motivated, basically?
I really don't know.
The views. I mean, what?
I mean, there's a bit of that for me, but it's just I'm a bit of a stats guy with stuff like that. I don't know, like, doing the blogging is kind of, and the podcast both give me a place to talk about games that I don't necessarily have. A big thing for me when I started the blog was because I played so many niche games, there was not really a space for me to communicate some of the ideas and thoughts I had about them, which is why I just made a blog to do that. So I guess that's kind of the main motivating factor. It's because I just have too much shit I want to get out of my head.
I guess for me, it would just be the idea of just sort of making stuff and then putting it out. I guess I like the creating part, because like after I'm done with the podcast, I almost kind of feel like done the recording, done the trailer. Now I'll have to do the YouTube video as well. But you know that feeling when you're done, you're just like, I'm empty.
Yeah, actually, that's why I started writing at a more aggressive clip, was so that I never had to have periods of downtime with it, because it always felt really weird to have those, and then even weird to try and start up again. So I was just like, if I just keep writing, then I don't have to deal with that, you know?
Yeah. What's your favorite moment from your podcast from this whole year so far?
Oh, fuck, that's tough.
That is tough.
Mostly because it's hard to remember an entire year's worth of podcast episodes all at once.
I mean, I have to listen to it like basically 3 times.
Yeah, I just listened to the final product.
Well, I'm saying like this recording counts as 1.
Oh, okay. So like it's twice then.
Yeah, twice for you, 3 times for me.
I guess my favorite would be like some of the times where I've gone off on like completely random tangents and we're just like laughing our asses off at how stupid I am. One of the best examples, one of my favorite trailers you cut, was when I was explaining Honey Pop 2. And I was like, I forget exactly what it was, but I made a meme about it where it was like, I'm the stupidest man alive. And I put like verbatim what I said in the podcast about Honey Pop 2. And it's like, never mind, here, take my crown. Something like, you gotta use your sexy anime penis powers to take down evil space hookers or some shit. That was pretty funny. Or like the PS5 cartel, that shit last episode was also pretty fucking stupid. Like, that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I like taking those moments that are really funny. I don't know, the one where you're like, you gotta gravy your vegetables, you gotta gravy your turkey, you gotta gravy your like potatoes. I'm like, what the fuck? You gotta
drink the gravy. I have done this. Shut your mouth. I have done that.
I don't remember that happening.
Gravy. I didn't do it at like a family thing. I did it while I was at summer camp, and someone was like, "This gravy is so good." I'm like, "This gravy is so good. It's so good I could put it on everything." And then we kind of looked at each other and we dumped gravy over our entire plate, like a bunch of degenerates. And then we ate our food, and people were like, "What's wrong with you?" And like, "This gravy's delicious. Get off my case."
I was wondering because I'm like, I wonder when he's done that.
And I drank gravy one time when my buddy Tim and I were at Mary Brown's getting lunch, and their gravy's really good. I don't know if that's a chain that's universally applicable for everyone. They're like a fast food chain. They're like a Kentucky Fried Chicken.
But better.
Well, they're kind of the same thing, but yeah, they have this really thick with 12 C's gravy, and Tim and I just drank the gravy when we were done our meals, which was gross. That was legitimately very terrible. I don't recommend doing that. Unless the gravy is like very watery. When it's super duper thick, it'll just make you want to puke.
Alright. If money wasn't a problem, what celebrity would you hire to join your podcast? I would hire Will Smith. Yeah. Not because I like Will Smith, but just because his name recognition would be...
You're really such a shit. That's such a shit answer. Oh my god.
I don't fucking know. Maybe real answer, I guess Jack Black. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, Jack Black would be fun.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about celebrities who are like really openly into gaming. Mila Kunis, she'd be cool to have on a podcast. I know she does some gaming. She's said that in interviews before. Jamie Lee Curtis, she'd be cool to have on podcast. She said she plays games very openly in interviews before as well. I'm sure there's other people who have said stuff. I'm just not super up on like celebrities, and it's really hard to come up with celebrity names on the spot.
I'm terrible at celebrities as well.
Yeah. So I'll stick with that. Like Mila Kunis, Jack Black, or Jamie Lee Curtis. Sure. Just really random choices.
Yeah. Serious answer for me would be Jack Black. How are you today?
My cat woke me up at 4, 5, and 7 a.m. howling at the top of her lungs because she's in heat. How the fuck do you think I am today?
Good, right?
No. It is what it is. This little white goblin needs to stop being horny and angry, both.
What's the plan for the future?
To keep doing this.
Putting this on YouTube. Oh wait, that's gonna happen. And yes, continue doing this.
He asked me to drink eggs twice.
I didn't read that part.
No, we don't drink eggs. Dan, what the fuck? Do you drink eggs, Dan?
I think he does. I think I saw it on Twitter.
This is like when he was asking everyone about Dr. Pepper, and I don't drink Dr. Pepper either. This is his favorite soft drink.
I drink Dr. Pepper. I'm with you on that.
Okay, there you go, Dan. You got one.
Well, thank you, Dan, for all those questions, especially the egg ones.
Yes. You asked for questions, and you give us, is it 9 of them?
11 if you count the 2 eggs.
I wasn't too far off.
Let's see. We should do maths. So, Reading the post from yesterday, I have always viewed collector's editions as a waste of time and money because you are really only showing how much you have fallen for the marketing. Speaking of falling for marketing, with Bandai Namco having announced that Tales of Rise sold over 1 million copies worldwide and has somehow become the fastest selling title in this Tales of series, will we see Jay go on his quest of playing all the bad RPGs of the world and go forth with the Rise? Probably is the answer, yeah. Not yet. Because I think 90s.
Yeah.
90s steep.
Yeah, well, it's just if you buy it full price, it's going to be $90 with tax, so.
It does have a free upgrade from PS4 to PS5, though. So that is...
It's probably the same fucking price on both of them, though, isn't it?
It is the same price on both of them.
Yeah, that's how they should be. Oh my god.
Yes, that's how it should be. But it
stupid ass Sony and fucking EA and Rockstar, those dickheads are all doing the same thing.
I'm surprised it's not an all or nothing. Like, I'm surprised it's not every company's going, wait, they're getting away with it. We can get away with it now. Haha.
Yeah, well, 3 of the biggest fuckers in the industry are doing it, so.
Yeah, I'll probably play Tales of Arise at some point. I'm glad it's doing well, because that means that they are going to keep releasing these games in the West, even if people, I guess, think they're trash or something like that. I don't know, I like the Tales of series.
JRPG's bad.
Oh, fuck off. Alright, who is the dumbest main character in a game you played, and how would you make that character better?
Give me a second, I have to look at what JRPGs I've played. That's where the answer's going to come from.
Every Dragon Quest main character who's silent the entire time, I'd give them a voice to make them better. I don't know, does that feel like a cheating answer?
A little bit, but I'll accept it, it's fine.
I'll try and think of a better answer.
Because the silent protagonist is like, they're not even a character. That's the thing, right? It's like...
I know, you're projecting yourself onto that. Yeah.
Well, then it's like, then you're the dumbass, which might be correct, but...
Mm-hmm.
Indivisible has a pretty offensively stupid main character. I wrote about that in the review that I wrote. I am fairly certain. The big issue I had with... Her name is Ajna? I think is what it was. The big issue with her is that she's just fucking stupid. There's only so much that you can, like, really ham up a character's shortcomings before they become, like, really obnoxiously stupid. And when you have what is ostensibly, like, 20 different characters all saying, hey, you should really reconsider your decision, and her going, nah, I'm gonna do it anyway. It's like, oh my god, you are actually, like, a complete brain-dead degenerate. And what's even dumber is that across the entire game's story, she makes fundamentally the same mistake, like, 3 times. And all 3 times has a bunch of people from, like, main cast of characters going, hey, I think this is a bad idea, and her just going, nah. And it's like the same thing over and over again. I'm like, damn, girl, when are you gonna learn?
History repeats itself.
She was extremely irritating, and that game's kind of like a JRPG, except she's actually like a fully voiced character. I did not care for her antics.
Did not gel with her. That's fair.
She's the dumbest main character.
I guess more of a serious answer would be Ethan Winters from Resident Evil.
Oh yeah, he's dumb as shit.
He is dumb as shit.
Yeah, that's more of like a comedic style. But yeah, he is. He's just he's brain dead as fuck. Holy moly.
It's the lines that he says. I haven't even played 8, but I've seen enough videos where he's like, why is everyone dying on me? And I'm like, because the house went on fire.
Yeah, he's a big
what
old dummy.
What do you mean? Yeah. What was that? Probably a monster.
I'm cheating a bit here. The entire cast of Bravely Default, all 4 of your party members are dumb as fuck. Bravely Default, not Bravely Default 2. Bravely Default.
Okay.
All 4 of the characters in that are dumb as shit. Another JRPG. That one, they are all... It's just like, it's so obvious what's happening, but they're just like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, oh my god, you people are all fucking stupid.
The twins from Wolfenstein Youngblood, they were just the worst. They'd have all these terrible one-liners that just be like, nope, those didn't land. Please stop. Your dad is cooler. I don't know how to fix them. Machine games go in a different timeline where the twins don't exist. That's probably the solution.
So I'm gonna stick with the entire cast of Bravely Default and Ajna from... I'm pretty sure that's her name, from Indivisible. I also, like, 100% agree with Ethan Winters from Resident Evil. Holy shit, that man he's got nothing. He's the fucking Scarecrow from the Wizard of Oz.
I know he's supposed to be also like kind of like the silent protagonist-esque because you're in first person, like you're supposed to be projecting yourself onto him.
But he's so dumb every time he talks.
Exactly.
He's a fucking he's the Scarecrow. If I only had a brain. So thank you everyone who took time to answer questions. I know we did most of them a little bit on the faster side, but
question, yes.
Yeah, it was pretty alright to go through a bunch of different random viewer questions.
Thanks for making our anniversary episode special.
And next time we get to talk about China.
I forgot about it.
That's the next.
Forgot you were researching
the next
that.
Big spoiler for the next big episode. Unless something crazy happens, the next big episode topic we're going to be is the China's war on video games. Because I've been looking into that because I think it's very interesting what kind of long-term ramifications, or at least what kind of new market-related ramifications that'll have, especially since a lot of big Western developers have been... Sony, especially with them launching a bunch of their games on PC, was specifically to target China. So like what kind of ramifications this will have, because China's like fundamentally the biggest growth market in video games. So, but anyway, that's for next week, or next episode rather.
Hello, Chives. I can hear you.
You can hear her, right?
Yes.
That's what I keep hearing at fucking 4 o'clock in the morning.
Sorry, man.
It's that, and it's just constant until she decides she wants to come back to bed.
That's crazy. Okay, games we have been playing. I have a total of 3 this week. I believe you do as well.
I forget what 3 I said.
Oxenfree.
I guess we can start with Oxenfree.
Yeah, sure, I played that one before. What'd you think of it?
2 out of 5.
Fair enough.
It would have been a 3 out of 5 if it didn't keep fucking tweaking out the entire time.
What do you mean it tweaked out?
It just had like a lot of technical problems on PC.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I played it on console.
I tried playing it with a controller and it like kept derping out. So I was like, okay, fuck this. So I switched over to using a mouse and keyboard. So then you just like click where you want the characters to go. But sometimes the pathing doesn't work. So I had one where I clicked down like a hill and what was the main character's name? Alex just kept like walking up and down a ladder. I was like, oh, that's cute. And that wasn't like a one-time thing. Every time I was in that area, if I did the same thing, she'd just get stuck on the ladder going up and down. I'm like, oh my god. I guess spoilers for Oxenfree.
There's no way to get around that game with spoilers.
Yeah. The game is very heavy on atmosphere and kind of is like a bit of a horror-y type thriller sort of thing as far as the way the story is presented and what happens. When the game is constantly breaking, that immediately breaks all of the tension and takes you out of that, which is why I didn't necessarily enjoy it.
That's a shame.
Yeah, I just, like, the starting of it is pretty good, and it does a really good setup, but I didn't think the execution was as good, but the fact that the game kept deliberately sabotaging itself kind of ruined a lot of it for me. I'm still not entirely sure that my gorilla brain even understood the story.
It's been a while since I played that, so...
I started it with Miranda, but she wanted to make her own choices, so she played through the entire game, and we both talked about it afterwards. We basically just played it at the same time and then talked about it afterwards. She kind of explained some stuff, but I still kind of don't get it.
Well, I mean, the character is essentially trapped in kind of like a loop.
Yeah,
almost.
they're like trapped in a time loop, but I don't understand why. That's the part I'm stuck on. I guess it could just be because, but yeah.
I think that's more or less what it is, because alien.
Well, it's not aliens, it's ghosts. That I understood, it's ghosts.
Sorry, supernatural.
The dialogue system is interesting. I just feel like it doesn't make a huge impact on the entire game. There's ways that you can make subtle differences, but they don't really impact the story. Like, you can make your best friend hook up with this girl he's interested in, but that doesn't really have any impact on the story.
No, because you have the loop.
Yeah.
There's no ending, really, to this game.
Well, I'm more focusing on the fact that none of your choices feel like they amount to any consequence. Apparently, you can escape from the loop, but it takes a lot of effort, and the ending's marginally different than the ending that you get when it repeats the loop. So.
Yeah, I know. I have experienced the breaking of the loop, but it was, yeah, as you said, it wasn't really worth the effort involved in trying to do that. It's just like subtle differences, and then it's...
I thought the use of the radio was interesting, but I don't know. I just, between how little impact the player has on things, and then how mechanically bereft the game is, I just felt like the game feels kind of like a walking sim more than anything else.
Yeah, it more or less is. How many times did you play it?
Just the once.
Just the once? Okay, I played it, I think, at least twice.
I have some perspective on some of the different things that can happen because Miranda and I discuss stuff, but fundamentally, the choices based on because at the end of the game, they're like, oh, this is like the choices you made compared to the other players in like a graph. And there's not like a whole lot of variety. And like I said, they're mostly superficial. It's oh, did you make up with this character? Did you get these two characters to hook up? How did you did you become friends with your stepbrother? It's like, okay, what the fuck? This is
yeah.
This is just kind of is what it is, isn't it?
The thing with their other game, After Party, was kind of the exact same problem where they had like the branching dialogue, but then it's like it all comes back to the same point, and you're like, okay, so did anything matter? Like there's a little bit more that they had where it's like, oh, to get the invitation to Satan's party, you can do like either path A, which is like a whole hour different, or path B, that's completely different. But then when it gets back to the same path, it's like you were following the same thing because in order to get like the different endings, you had to play at least twice.
I feel like that's a big problem for a lot of developers because they don't want to put time and effort into something the player just doesn't see. So you find very few games that legitimately let you go on a completely divergent pathways that have long-standing, meaningful differences.
But then those are the games that are really special because...
Yeah, because they actually commit to the idea of having variety in player choice in a meaningful way.
Yeah, I saw the same kind of flaws that Oxenfree had in After Party that I played recently. I think After Party in some regards is a bit better, but I think, as you said, the setup of Oxenfree is pretty good. It's just the end execution is like, well, what did I actually accomplish? Anything? No.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it ends on a bit of a flat note, yeah.
And I don't know if that's just because it wants to do the whole loop thing, so it's like, it doesn't really kind of want to end, per se, but I don't know.
It's fine for what it is. Fundamentally, it's a very inoffensive 4-hour journey. If you don't have any technical issues, I could see you having a really good time with it, but I don't think there's anything particularly notable about the experience. I don't know that I'd recommend it really to anyone, aside from like if you get it on the cheap as like a palate cleanser between other games. Would you say
$5 is worth the price of admission, or?
I guess. I feel like I got it for 2 or 3. I don't know. It's fine. I kind of expect, because some people have said it was really good, so I kind of expected it would be like other games that people have said that were really good that were kind of on rails like that, where there's something about it that I'm like, ooh, this is actually really cool, like in Firewatch, how the dialogue is handled and how that adapts over time and kind of changes. Spoilers for Firewatch, how that changes your ability to interpret what happens, and how the dialogue shifts will change what happens in the game's story, because it's a game about perspective. So your perspective is reflected in the way that the game presents its story. So if you think that like all this alien shit is happening, then alien shit is happening. But if you're like, no, there's got to be a logical explanation for everything, then a logical explanation is there for everything, which is really, really neat. The only kind of neat thing that Oxenfree has going on for it is that you can kind of select the dialogue bubbles and you can interrupt other characters while they're saying things, which is neat. But there was times where I like clicked it and I didn't want it to like
interrupt the rest of it.
Yeah, but like it was fading away, so I'm like, well, I have to click it now so I can say this thing, otherwise it's not going to say it. And then it's like, well, but it's going to interrupt this person, and I'm like, I don't want to interrupt this person. I don't know. It is a little bit annoying in that regard.
Silence is like an option. But yeah, if you still...
Yeah, I was silent through a couple of things, but there's a few times where I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to interrupt the person to say it. I wanted them to like finish what they were saying, and then I'd follow it up with whatever.
I don't really know what a solution for that would be, other than to have to like press the button twice, like
press and hold the option you want.
Maybe, yeah.
And release it for when you want it to go out, but that's a little bit more complicated, and they'd have to explain that instead of it being naturally. Maybe that's something that they did, and I just never tested it. I don't know.
I don't recall it, so...
So yeah, Oxenfree is very okay.
Okay, I played the rest of BioShock 1 and really enjoyed it. Now, would you all kindly listen to what I'm about to say about it?
Would you agree that the ending is kind of shit?
It's rushed, that's for sure.
Yeah, so that's the thing. No one can convince me otherwise. The ending is supposed to be when the big reveal happens, and like that's it. And no one can tell me otherwise. Not a soul can tell me otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Big plot twist.
Yeah, and then it's followed by this really contrived finishing sequence bullshit where it's like, oh, did you do the good thing or the morally upstanding thing, or did you do the bad thing? If you did the morally upstanding thing, then you get like a bunch of rewards, and then you fight like a really ham-fisted boss fight, which kind of said last episode that BioShock's not really a shooter in the traditional sense.
Mm-hmm.
So this really traditional style boss fight shooter gallery thing is really, really, really stupid and really antithetical to the entire experience.
I would have to agree with that. Yeah, the ending, it's almost like Resident Evil, where it's like it should have ended when you finished with the bakers, but then it didn't.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
It's like almost the exact same thing. You're dealing with, was it Andrew Ryan?
I think that's his name, yeah.
Yeah, you're dealing with him the whole, like, for most of the whole game, and it's like, plot twist, and fuck it, the spoilers, obviously. You deal with him, and it's like, big reveal, your friend the whole entire time betrayed you. I'm like, I was expecting this, even without knowing, because I didn't actually know about the last third of the game, but I knew, like, the whole, you're being controlled with the phrase. I liked the reveal, and I'm sure if I didn't already know about it, would have been even more impactful. Playing it a second time and thinking more about the big reveal is also good because you notice all that in the dialogue. Would you kindly put your weapon away? And you just do it and you're like, I didn't have a choice. Okay. But you just think you just think it's a tutorial part because you're being introduced to the Big Daddy and the little girls that the Big Daddy protects. As you had pointed out last time, don't treat it like a shooter. Treat it more like
treat it more like an immersive sim because that's more what it's going for.
Yep, that is how I treated it, and it was a lot better after doing that. Hacking all of the turrets and the cameras and whatnot, luring enemies towards the cameras that you've hacked, and then like having them spawn all of the machines to just decimate them to get through a level. That's pretty cool. So yeah, as you had pointed out earlier, the game has like a morality thing where it's like,
it's really stupid and ham-fisted.
Did you save the sister? Did you not save the little sister? And you're like, okay.
So that's very that time period.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of games with these really shitty,
Infamous was like that, yeah.
Yeah, these really shitty binary, like the BioWare games are all like that too, where they have these really shitty binary morality systems.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're either a paragon of justice or you're a fucking despicable shit rag.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no like way to play in between without there being like massive penalties. In BioShock, it's very much a binary choice. So if you kill any of them, I believe, you automatically get the bad ending. So you have to either kill them all or save them all. Otherwise, you get penalized. If you save them all, you are a little bit behind until kind of the very end. Because Tenenbaum, is that her name?
Yeah.
The scientist lady. She keeps giving you
presents
like
along the way.
Care packages. Yeah, which ends up giving you
more in the long run.
More shit than you would get if you killed all of them.
Yeah.
There's no reason to kill any of them. It's just like in the early game, you get a little bit more.
You're weaker at the beginning, but
in the long run, it pays way heavier dividends to be weak in the beginning because it's like after the first hour or two, you're even with what like the bad route is, and then after that, you're way ahead. It's real dumb. It's not balanced very well.
No, it's totally skewed towards saving them because you get the present and you get like 200 Atom instead of like for each one, and then you get some money, and then you get like a tonic upgrade that's usually really, really powerful and really good. I enjoyed the research system where you had to take the photos of the
and the better the photos are, the better your damage bonuses are.
Yeah, I mean, you could take multiples of them, but like the first one getting like a A, and then you just see the progress bar, and then every so often you'd get like bonus rewards. Like for the spider one, you can transform their heart into a health pack, which that's really useful because the game throws a lot of those enemies at you, and you're like, okay, well, I can get a health out of you.
Mm-hmm.
Or just any passive upgrades. Like I think if you take shots of the little sister when investigating them, then you get like a small bonus of health and Eve, which is the power boost,
I never
essentially
ever thought to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the research ones. Also, if you research, cameras are a separate one, the turrets are a separate one, and the flyer ones, the flyer turrets, essentially. Those flyer bots.
Okay.
Those all have their own research, and you get every level gives you a new one, like a new bonus, like do more damage to them, hack them quicker, or something like that. And usually the last one gets you like an extra tonic or something like that. And you're like, cool. think the one for the big daddies is like, do more damage to the big daddies. I'm like, that would have been useful in the first level.
Yeah, no
where
kidding.
you're just like, fuck them. And then getting all the weapon upgrades, that's useful as well. There's only like one big missable thing. So there's a level where you have like this essentially this painter, this artist. I think it was like Sanders or something like that, or Selwyn or something like that.
I think it's Sanders, like Sander Cohen.
Yeah, that's it, like Sander Cohen. Thank you. If you kill him after he shows up, you get locked out of something later on in one of the fast levels, but because this game is designed a way that you can go to previous levels, don't kill him when you see him in the big reveal. Kill him later when you have to go to some apartments later on after... I think it's the level after the big reveal of Andrew Ryan and your hypnotic state. Keep him alive because there's like an extra weapon upgrade that's locked behind there. You lose out on that if you kill him early.
Because you can't get in his apartment?
He won't come down out of his apartment because there's 2 dancers, and if you kill them, he's just like all pissed off that you did that, and then he goes to come down and fights you. If you kill him early, his apartment's locked up permanently. So I think I was like missing something from there, and I had to replay it. But I replayed the game on easy and was just decimated my
shit out of everything.
Well, it's New Game Plus, so I had all the upgrades and all the research done. So I was just like,
I look at you, you are dead.
Level 3 on like the fire move, you're dead. It was very entertaining. But yeah, that's BioShock. It is a very good game. Yeah, don't treat it like a shooter, unlike BioShock Infinite.
Yeah, treat it like an immersive sim.
As to your point saying, like, why does BioShock have, or Infinite have, like, the BioShock tag? It really doesn't need it.
It's so
different.
Different, yeah.
It didn't need it, so it could have been a completely different name, but I guess brand recognition, so...
Yeah, well, that's how you sell a video game, right? Sequels always sell better. Just because people are like, oh, it's a sequel. That must mean that it's good.
That's probably how we both played it.
I mean, kinda, yeah.
Yeah, so... It got us. Damn it. Marketing.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. Mads is onto something.
Yeah, I know he is. We're all just a bunch of dumb monkeys.
What's next for you?
Whatever I said that wasn't Strive. I forgot.
I forgot too.
Fuck, well.
6.5 hours later.
River City Girls.
Oh, okay. So I was going to play Psychonauts 2 on Game Pass. And I played it for an hour and decided that it was garbage.
Oh,
because
is
it's
that
garbage.
How long you played it? I thought you played more of it than that.
God, no. I barely got past the tutorial. That game is awful.
You followed your own guide.
No, so I did. It's just... I'll briefly talk about Psychonauts 2 here, just to elaborate on why I think it's so bad. That game legitimately feels like it's from 20 years ago, and that's not a compliment. The platforming is super duper clunky. The combat controls are all super duper clunky. And the biggest offense of all is the game constantly drags you out of the game for cutscenes for no fucking reason. Anytime any character talks in like a normal game that is out now, the character would just, fucking talk and then you'd be able to continue playing the game. In Psychonauts 2, it constantly rips the camera and the control of everything away from you to play some dumb fucking cutscene where a character talks at the main character of the game. And that's it. I have no idea why they chose to do this. It is the most asinine shit I have ever seen. And it continues for the entire game. I got as far as playing through the tutorial. So in the tutorial, it introduces 4 powers to you, which are mapped to the shoulder buttons and the triggers on the shoulders.
Your favorite.
Well, yeah, because it hurts my hands. That's not what ended me. What ended me was when they unlocked a 5th ability, and instead of having like an intuitive way to swap the abilities, you had to go into a menu and re-equip it like it was Zelda Ocarina of Time, and I'm like, fuck that. And I just stopped playing the game. In the menu for the abilities, there's going to be like fucking 12 or 15 of the fucking things. I'm like, I'm not switching. I'm going to have to switch these fucking things out constantly. I'm not doing that. Are you fucking kidding me? Even the newer Zelda games have the even fucking Breath of the Wild. You just, all of your shit is just there. You can just use it from a quick select menu. You don't have to go into a goddamn menu and unequip and re-equip a bunch of stuff. And in the remastered versions, Wind Waker, for example, the Wind Waker in that is used so often they just mapped it to the fucking D-pad, right? So it's like you don't have to constantly equip and unequip this item that's essential for playing the entire game.
Wind Waker was a good remake.
Yeah, it fixes quite a few of the issues that game had. But yeah, so I was just like, no, I'm not dealing with this. This is dumb. This is super dumb. All the people who are saying this game is great, they either have the nostalgia glasses so tightly on their head that they're like, oh yeah, this is like a perfect sequel. I see nothing wrong with this game being released in today's day and age, despite feeling like it's from 20 years ago.
Did you play the original?
Fucking no.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, you don't have the nostalgia.
Yeah, I feel like most of the people praise. Oh, Miranda did, and she even thought this sequel was a hot crock of shit. So
Okay.
because it, just for most of the same reasons that I said, during the final boss fight, which she actually played through the entire thing, the game interrupts the fight 4 separate times to play different cutscenes throughout the fight, so...
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah, and they're set at times when it would be normal to, like, transition to the next phase of the boss fight, but transitioning the phase of the boss fight is like this, the boss got one new attack instead of it being, like, a legitimate new phase, and I'm like, oh my god. Yeah, this game was made for a bunch of boomers with nostalgia glasses on. Anyway, River City Girls. So we have Game Pass for another couple of weeks. So I looked through the Game Pass catalog and was like, hey, is there anything else I want to play while Miranda's Game Pass subscription is still going? So I saw River City Girls. I happen to also have my arcade stick over, and I'm like, I wonder if I can play this game on my arcade stick. I did.
Nice.
I had to switch which type of input it is. So like for Strive, I have it set to recognize it as a Switch controller. For this, I had to switch it to be an Xbox controller, but that was easy. Just press a few buttons.
That's not cool.
Yeah, so I played an arcade-style game on an arcade stick. River City Girls is very okay. I have a few issues with it. The main one is that the game requires you to unlock most of the moves, and I kind of fundamentally hate when games do that. So, for a lot of the game, I was playing it on the normal difficulty, and in the earlier stages of the game, I had no meaningful, useful way to crowd control, so I kept getting my ass kicked. Once I unlocked some of the moves that are able to hit more than one target reliably, or otherwise deal with crowds around you really reliably,
right?
Like the number of times I died went down dramatically. So it's like as soon as I had moves that let me deal with crowds of people, I stopped dying. You can block. I would advise against it because you'll still just get dogpiled by enemies anyway. So the blocking doesn't do a whole lot of anything.
Well, not if their enemies are coming from both sides.
Yeah, you can only block from the one side, so...
Is there a way to meaningfully dodge, or...?
It is kind of like pseudo 3D-ish. You can kind of like walk out of the way, but I feel like doing that is not... Once they get you, it's like you're kind of stuck. A lot of the attacks in the games are like I don't think they have a great amount of wind-up animation to them, so they'll just hit you. Like, for example, one of the things I'm used to from fighting games is that when you get a knockdown on somebody, you have advantage over them. So, like, you can time your moves so that the first frame of them hitting happens as soon as your opponent, they stand up, so they have to stand up and block immediately. In this, the characters don't, like, the enemy characters don't give a fuck, and their attacks are, like, I want to say, like, less than 10 frames to go off, so they'll just immediately come out of a knockdown state into an attack and hit you, and I'm like, that's bullshit! And a lot of the times it'll just go through whatever your attacks are, because your attacks are not super active. So that was a little bit frustrating.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I don't know, it's, like, fine-ish. The leveling I wasn't super big on. You also have to explore the game's world. Instead of being a bunch of linear levels, it's set up like there's like a town and shit you have to explore. So you're like going around, and there's set encounters when you hit certain spots. When you're just like randomly walking around, enemies will just kind of come out of nowhere and start beating you up. You can't get any XP from that, but you can farm money doing that, which is useful for getting those move unlocks.
This kind of sounds like the original No More Heroes, kind of. Is it an open world, or is it like kind of top down?
No, it's like you're walking around the perspective never changes.
Okay.
You're still walking around, and it's like you're poised to fight random enemies that come up. It's just that you have to explore like screen to screen, which is actually kind of annoying.
Okay, I get it.
So one of the big issues I had with it was that it keeps sending you up with like quests, and because you actually have to like explore this world, I kept getting a lot, being like, where the fuck am I supposed to go? I had to like open up the map and look at where the quest marker was. So I'm like, oh yes, going here intuitively makes sense, and I'd get somewhere, and they're like, oh, we can't get through it. I guess we have to double back somewhere else. I'm like, what the fuck? I just wanted to play a beat 'em up, man. It's supposed to be a linear sequence of kicking the shit out of people. Why the fuck am I exploring like a quasi-open world? I don't understand.
They got you.
Yeah, let's say I'm glad I didn't pay money for it.
Is that good? Yeah, that's gonna be a trend of all the Xbox games you're gonna talk about.
Not necessarily. I actually bought Star Renegades, so that was one that I played on Game Pass that I enjoyed. But the thing is, I'm not really big into beat 'em ups. I like fighting games because they're better.
Well, do you like the one-on-one more?
I like the ability to face off against somebody else and the one-on-one is also nice. Where beat 'em ups feel like, because it's you versus a bunch of AI, so instead of making the AI intelligent or putting a bunch of systems in, you're inherently overpowered, so the only way that the AI can combat you is just by throwing a bunch of shit at you, or having bosses who repeatedly attack through your combos. That's the other thing that pissed me off. The bosses will just break your combos, which just does not, that shouldn't be a thing. I'm sorry. I've played so many games where it's like you can't, like, Monster Hunter is the only game where I think it's okay or like Bayonetta, for the bosses to get out of your attacks, because the bosses in those games are fucking enormous. You are a tiny little pissant hunter fighting off against a giant monster, or you're a witch in bondage fighting off against this giant angel who's the size of a skyscraper. No shit, they don't care about your combo. But like, I'm a human being fighting another human being. Why can this other human being just break out of my combos and head bash me and then get like their own combo against me? That's fucking stupid.
And then you're not allowed to break their combo. You have to wait it out.
No, they have heavy armor through stuff and they can just break out of their... So it's like a lot of the bosses were figuring out how many hits can I get in before they're going to break the combo. So you throw your combo finisher just before that, so you get like the number of combo hits you can, and then do your combo finisher, and then you just repeat that over and over and over again. I think it was second or third boss is like the best example of this. You can only hit him 3 times before he'll break out of the combo, so you just do 1, 2, and then a combo finisher, and you just do that repeatedly over and over and over and over again for like 5 minutes straight, and then he dies.
Yeah.
The only time he'll ever hit you back is if you do more than 3 attacks.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing for like Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, where it's like you start get the combo on the boss, but the boss is just like, no, fuck you, I'm stronger than you.
Well, that's a game that's not about, you're not supposed to kill the bosses in there. You're just parrying them to break their guard so you can get the fucking finisher, right? Like,
most of the time, yeah.
Most of what you're doing in that is parrying, but that's like how you're doing damage, right? You're not necessarily hitting their health bar. You're working away at their parry bar until you can finally land a finishing blow. That is, I think, a little bit different, because that's a game that I thought was a lot more defensively oriented as far as how the combat worked. Because it's just a game about parrying. You parry or you die. That's it. It's just you parry or you die. You can't finish that game if you can't parry.
That's true. Is that it for River City Girls?
Yeah.
Steadily moving on from BioShock, I moved on to BioShock 2.
Yeah, that's not a big surprise, so.
Nope, wanted to finish the rest. Almost at the end. Just didn't have enough time to finish it up before recording, but that's okay. So I can talk about most of it. So one thing you kind of said last time, which was in BioShock Infinite, they're like, well, we did the sky, we did it underwater. Well, we can't really do any more, so there's no more BioShocks. So they make this pretty different experience from the original BioShock, because it puts you as the player in the feet of one of the big daddies, essentially. And that's the character you're playing as. So there's a lot more enemies that come at you. The stuff that you're going to be doing is a bit different. So you're going to adopt the little sisters, and then they're going to take the Atom throughout the levels, and then you can save them. So that's a bit different, and that actually kind of acts as kind of like almost kind of like a tower defense game in some regards, because you have to defend the little sister from getting attacked along with yourself, because otherwise it stops her from collecting the Atom and you can move on with that part of the game. Because you can actually ignore the little sisters just like in the first, but you should, because you'll be way underpowered. A few of the other changes is hacking is no longer a mini game where you have to change the pipes. From in the first one, you have to change the pipes around in order to make it flow from one end to another. This one is just kind of there's just kind of a bar and there's just a needle, and you just have to line it up with either the blue or the green, and if you do that you can successfully hack. So I feel like that was kind of I don't know, it simplified it, but it didn't really make it all that much fun per se. The thing that they made a bigger improvement on was the research. So in this one, instead of you just taking a photo, you're actually taking film of them, and the more different types of weapons or abilities that you use, so your plasmids, the higher the grade is. So you can fire off the electricity, you can fire off the bees.
Bees!
You can fire off the flame, and you can like fire off the ice, and that'll get you like 100 points towards the research. And like firing off whatever weapons you've got, ending with the Big Daddy drill, which is very, very satisfying.
I bet it is. That shit looks satisfying.
It is. It's really funny because if it's just a normal enemy, they just stop. Like they can't do anything.
They just explode to a bunch of meat chunks.
And I have one of my extra abilities, like the equipable plasmids that you've got for like passive stuff. I've got it so that it's set up so that it's a freezing. It has like the chance to freeze them. So not only am I dealing that damage, I'm also dealing like frost damage along with that and like just destroying them. It's very overpowered. The way that the game handles it is that you have essentially like a fuel for that. So you have to keep collecting the fuel in order to keep using that. So that's how they balance that out a little bit. So you just don't keep using that because that's essentially your big melee weapon. And they give you some similar weapons and few different ones where it's like you can set traps down and lay those down before you like start defending, or if you know an enemy's going to show up, you're just going to trap them with essentially these tripwires, and then just they'll hit them and then you're like, I win. I won't really get into the whole plot of it. It is just a continuation of the first game with different characters. Not a whole lot's happened in Rapture other than a few new people got released from, I guess, Andrew Ryan's clutches essentially after his death from the first one. So story's okay. Still got the same binary problem that we were talking about earlier, where if you save them, that's better. If you don't, then...
Oh my god, so they didn't learn.
They didn't learn.
What a bunch of rooms.
It's the exact same. Like, still get the bonuses.
What a bunch of rubes, Jesus.
You already feel like you're overpowered because you're the big
Yeah,
daddy,
you're the fucking
like...
big chungus, man. Like, how the fuck?
There's a part where you take over a little sister. It's like a plot thing. That was really interesting because you kind of get to see what they're seeing. Because you know, like, how weird they are with the whole, like, look, it's an angel. And, like,
oh,
now I kind of realize what they're actually seeing. They're hypnotized almost into seeing the world of Rapture being, like, all pretty and beautiful, even though it's all run down.
Huh.
So,
okay.
like, and, like, some of the dead bodies actually have, like, an imprint of, like, an angel and stuff like that. And there's, like, propaganda.
We're looking for angels.
Yeah, exactly. And they're, like, there's propaganda of the stay with your big daddy, always be with your big daddy, trust the big daddy. So it's that part I really found interesting. It's only like maybe 15 minutes, but I found that.
Huh. That's a neat little bit of world building.
Yeah, because you're just like, why do they act like this? I know, like, how are they?
Because they're brainwashed.
And because they're freaking brainwashed into thinking that, and everything's nice. So that was really cool that they got to explore that. I think they did what they could with a sequel as best, like, they did their best job with a sequel, because it is quite a bit different, even though I'm exploring essentially the same world. So they did a really good job with that. Whereas I can see with BioShock Infinite, I'm like, what else could they do other than maybe let you play as Elizabeth more, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, BioShock 2. It's also a really good game. I'm going to find out if it sticks the landing. Probably not. It'll probably feel rushed.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with BioShock, but the ending of all those games is kind of... Well, I've played the first and the third, and I think the endings in both of those games are kind of shit, so...
Yeah, the third tries, at least, to wrap it up. It's like...
I had to play it twice, and then I'm like, I think I understand this, and then I read an entire like forum thing about it, and like, okay, I got most of that.
At least it does a better job than Kingdom Hearts with explaining its plot.
Yeah, well, it's not anime.
Very true. Your last one.
Strive, baby! So, we were talking a little bit earlier, because I was playing Strive earlier today. Over the weekend, what did I say last time? I was on 4-6 out of 11?
I think last episode you were like 4 to 5, and now...
Oh, I'm on 4-7 now.
Yeah.
So, I got as high as 4-9. I was on 4-7 and I beat the shit out of people and got like a huge win streak, and then I got bumped up to 8 and I got a win streak on 8 and I got bumped up to 9, and then everyone on 9 kicked my ass and I went back down to 8 and I got my ass kicked on 8 and I went back down to 7, and then this repeated several times that weekend. that's neither here nor there. I'm satisfyingly stuck on 7. There's a bunch of things that I know I need to practice and get better at, and I can identify those things. I just need to get better at doing them.
Fair enough.
It's small things, right? You look at things, okay, this is something this is something I need to do differently. So then you practice what you need to do differently, and then you try and keep practicing that until you see it happening regularly in matches, and then you pick up the next thing. And because of that, when you're like correcting bad behavior, you're not necessarily just doing things on instinct. And when you're not doing things on instinct, then you're not doing things as quickly or as not necessarily correctly, but more correct than not doing them at all.
Yeah, you're slow to react.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of times now where I'm dropping counter hit combos because I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do this when I get a counter hit combo, and then I just fucking don't do it. I'm like, God damn it. So yeah, instead of just like, oh, if I did this, it's better than doing nothing, and I end up doing nothing because I do the thing I want to do too slow, or I just don't input it fast enough for it to matter. So that's a thing. I've definitely kind of solidly slid into playing Mei as my main character. She's got shit town defense, does a lot of damage, and is super hyper aggressive offense. So I'm like, oh, this is just like Valerie from Fantasy Strike. That's my kind of character. The one thing is that she's a charge character. So for Jason and people who listen to this podcast who don't know what a charge character is, charge characters are an archetype of character who require you to charge their special moves before they can be used.
Oh, so is this like Samus's thing where she's got to charge like her special in order to like fire it off more powerfully?
Kind of, except instead of holding the B button, you have to hold back or down. And then to use the move, you fire the direction you go to the opposite direction. Mei's kind of signature move is the dolphin move. So she gets on top of a dolphin and flies vertically across the screen or horizontally across the screen. To do the vertical one, the up and down one, you hold down and then you flip to up and then you press the button and she rides the dolphin vertically, and then to the horizontal one, you're holding back and then you press forward and then she'll ride the dolphin horizontally. You can also do down back, so it's a crouching back, and then you can go into either from that. But yeah, you have to hold the opposite direction to charge the move for about 2 seconds, so about 120 frames, and then you can fire the move off. That's how charge characters work. Almost every charge character has moves that will push them forward as they use the moves, so they're typically rewarded for holding backwards. And their moves propel them forwards. In both of Mei's cases, the Mr. Dolphin moves move her forward. Even the vertical one, it moves her forward a little bit as she uses it because it's got a jump arc to it. So the problem I'm having is that it is so backwards to me to hold backwards while you're attacking forward.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds so weird.
Well, so like the archetypical charge character, like the first charge, well, I guess this archetype was kind of defined by Guile from Street Fighter, and he's a zoner. He's designed to like kind of keep people out and lock them down. So his sonic boom projectile requires a charge input, and then he's got flash kick, and I believe that also requires a charge input. Those two moves are designed, like you throw projectiles at people, and then flash kick is like a big reversal move that you can use to just smack people for trying to get in against you, and it throws them to the other side of the screen. The idea is that you're keeping them out and turtling a bit. Mei is not a charge character like that. She's a charge character who's designed to be unga bunga, fly in, and beat the hell out of people. But it's very contrary to the way I think about moving in fighting games to have to hold back and down constantly whilst on the offensive. I'm used to holding like forward or nothing at all, just being in neutral. I'm constantly having to be like, no, I gotta actually hold a direction when I'm attacking people instead of just like not holding anything at all, which is what I'm used to doing. In Fantasy Strike, because there's no motion inputs in that, the charge character in that just had like a meter. So like the meter disappeared every time you press forward. But if you're in neutral or holding or moving backwards, the meter would charge up. So that's like a different take on that kind of thing where it's like, okay, so you can use your inputs when you're not pressing forward. Because that's like the big thing with charge characters is like you can't use the specials while you're holding forward. That also ends up creating some interesting situations where it's like, how do I approach the enemy? Because if I move forward, I can't hold backwards. There's some interesting things with that. When you jump, the jump arc isn't changed by the direction you hold. So you can like jump forward and then immediately pull back so that when you land, you're ready to do the charge input. That's the thing you can do. But then you're jumping in all the time. And if you jump in all the time, people are just going to anti-air your ass. So Yeah, and then so there's a lot of interesting challenges with getting your head, or at least my head, around that. Enough so that I thought there might even be just like a blog post worth of content in writing how awkward this style of character is for me to learn. But like fundamentally, her moveset and the way she operates is very in line with how I like to play things. So I am going through the process of learning how to do this. Plus, it's something new to learn, and it's interesting because it's something new. So I will say that I have gotten a little bit better at having some moves where I'll be charging and then I can follow up with Mr. Dolphin for like combos. I'm getting better at least doing that instead of it just being like, oh, I just like randomly throw Mr. Dolphin out in neutral, which is kind of useless. It's like much better as a combo ender because a lot of Mei's moves have huge disjoints on them. Disjoints are when the hitbox is completely disconnected from the character that's using them. So typically characters that attack with weapons have disjoint hitboxes. Mei attacks with a giant anchor. That's why she's got huge disjoint hitboxes on a lot of her attacks. So a lot of her attacks have huge disjoints, and to like balance those out, you're constantly being pushed backwards as you attack things. So that's why you want to use like the Mr. Dolphin charge afterwards to combo into things and push yourself back in front of your opponent and continue wailing on them. That's been a bit of a challenge. And then the other thing is like learning what kinds of scenarios I need to do to actually apply pressure with this character. When I really get in their brains, I can really fuck them, but there's like only a handful of things I can do right now. So there's a bunch of other stuff I need to practice so that I can get a little bit more.
Oh dear.
My whole thing is I like knocking people down and then beating the hell out of them. I know all of her knockdown moves, I just need to learn more knockdown setups so I can hit confirm into knockdowns more reliably, and then when I do, I need to figure out a couple of Oki setups. She has a true 50-50 that I also need to learn. I have not learned at all. 50-50s, for people who don't know, is when there is two options that are diametrically opposed to one another. The opponent has to block one or the other, and they have to choose. That's why it's called 50-50.
That makes sense.
She has one of those where after knockdown, she can choose one option or the other option, and depending on which one she chooses, she's rewarded extremely heavily, and the opponent is punished extremely heavily for guessing incorrectly. There's some situations that are like called fuzzy 50-50s where it's like, oh, if you do like this one specific countermeasure, then it's not our true 50-50, but she has a legit 50-50 that is, you can't fuzzy your way through it. You either block high or you block low, and if you choose wrong, you get hit.
Is there any consequence for you if they pick right, or...?
Yeah, so if they pick right and I don't have meter, then I can get hard punished for it. The one is super punishable, the other one's not as punishable. I can get away with throwing with the other one and not being punished immediately, but the other one has got too many recovery frames, so only an idiot wouldn't attack me after they block it, which does happen. It's got like 20-something frames of recovery. It's insane. It's super duper punishable. You can like bust out your like heavy attacks to punish this shit. It's wild. That's a risk with it, but the 50-50 only really works if you have meter for a roam and cancel. So if you hit it and they block it, you can just roam and cancel to save yourself. So fundamentally, you just cancel out of the move and you cancel out of the recovery of the move. But it costs half of your super meter to do that. That's the other thing. The game has the Roman cancel situation, which is when you can freeze time. There's 4 different scenarios where you can freeze time. You can freeze it when you're defending, when you're in neutral, when you're in the middle of a combo, or when you've dropped a combo. And this will allow for different scenarios. The time freeze usually gives you you and your opponent a couple extra seconds to react, but if your opponent's already in hit stun, they can't do anything. The 2 more offensively oriented ones, when you dropped a combo or you're in the middle of a combo, those usually just let you extend your combos or combo off of moves that you can't combo off of, or in the case of the scenario I outlined before, if they block, then you can use it to end your recovery frames and begin blocking what would be a punish, because they wouldn't be able to punish you anymore because you've recovered prematurely because of the Roman cancel. And then, like, ideally with that setup, you land the move and then you Roman cancel them while they're in the middle of getting hit with it, and then they get thrown back up, and then you can do a full follow-up combo against them. I know that probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to people who don't play fighting games. I might have a post that elaborates on what that mechanic is, because it's probably the most interesting thing that Strive has on offer, and it leads to a lot of very interesting gameplay scenarios that can be used by both casual and not casual players to very great effect. I'm still having a lot of fun with the game. A big part of that comes from the fact that I'm playing a character that is just very opposite from the way I think about playing these types of games. But like, as I said, the way she functions is how I like to play fighting games. Like, the way her character is designed is very in line with my taste. It's just that playing a charged character is a little bit brain breaking.
Last thing would be Overcooked All You Can Eat Edition.
I've sort of played this. I've played both of the... It's just like a
It's
collection
1 and
of...
2.
I've played 1 and 2 with Miranda, so I've played this technically.
Yeah, I believe it comes with all the DLC for 2, and maybe 1.
That I did not play. I didn't play the DLC for the games.
So yeah,
But
this
it's just
is
like
the
more
whole
of
big
the...
package. This was the PS Plus freebie for PS5 this month. Good if you've got a wife who really likes Overcooked, and then finds it stressful, and then stops wanting to play it because she finds it stressful. So yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Overcooked is essentially this game where you've got up to 4 players, and you all have to deal with basically just kitchen staff, and you've got to put out the orders in a timely manner, and you have to cooperate or lose.
Yes.
Each level is essentially set up in a way where you're going to have to learn its quirk. So sometimes the level is going to be moving, so you'll be on a ship, so some of the platforms are going to move. So initially you'll have the role of cutting up the vegetables, but then your partner will have to do that, and vice versa. So you have to cooperatively work together in order to solve that. Everyone's going to have different roles, whether that's cutting up the ingredients, putting the ingredients away, grabbing the dishes, cleaning the dishes. And I know this sounds all very kind of boring, but
It really does, but the fun part is trying to manage all of this
shit and try not to go crazy with whoever you're playing with.
I had a lot of fun playing this with Miranda.
As did I with Sarah. We played the original Overcooked, so we're playing that part again, and then we're playing the new stuff, which I think we played at a friend's house before, so we know a little bit of what goes into it, but we haven't seen all of it. And she's like, how do I throw? And I'm like, we can't throw in the original Overcooked. And she's like, what?
Yeah, holy
And they didn't,
holy
and that's one thing I want to
shit.
say. They didn't add that into this repackage, and I'm
Well,
kind of
the
like,
first
why
game's
not?
balanced around not
I know.
throwing. Where in the second game, you're just whipping food all over the goddamn kitchen.
Yeah. I kind of wish it was balanced for that. That'd be kind of cool, but whatever. It's kind of easy money for them, but whatever. We haven't played Overcooked 2 yet. I think we're about 3 or 4 worlds into the original Overcooked. I know we just finished up the ice level that we both hate, because in that one you can fall off the edge really easily.
Oh my god.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sarah kept falling off the edge. She's like, no! She almost fell off the edge with food once that was fully prepared, and we're like, no! It was just teetering off the side. That was nerve-wracking.
I had a lot of fun playing this game, but I'm gonna come out and say, and people are gonna think that I'm a bad boyfriend for doing this, but 100% of the time we were playing, I was just bossing Miranda around the entire time. It's like, do this, okay, do this, okay, do this, okay, do this. She doesn't like having to take the lead on stuff. And prefers just having directions for stuff. So I was looking at me okay, this is the thing that you need to do. This is the thing. And I wasn't so much barking orders, so much as okay, you work on this. I'm going to do this. Okay. And I should be oh, I see we need so-and-so. I'm yeah, you start the thing for that. And then I'm going to do this. And then we'll do this thing. And then I'll do the dish. And it's okay. And then it was very short kind of things. Okay. Tomatoes. Okay. She'd go over and cut the tomatoes. And it's not it was super involved. It was just you had a kind of fundamentally a squad leader calling out what needed to be done, and there's only 2 people, so she would pick up the thing that I called out.
We were playing it a bit differently, where we were both kind of leading and going who needs to do this, who needs to do that, and you get a score, and that score can get you 3 stars. So we'd often get 2 on the first attempt, and then we'd sit down afterwards, discuss what did we do wrong. Was it just a case of we didn't know the level yet?
There was 2 levels in the entirety of the first game that we did not get 3 stars on the first try on.
Well,
that's what happens when you have a decisive, consistent leader.
Well, we played differently, so
yeah.
Hush.
2's a bit shit though, because in 2 you can get 4 stars, but 4 stars is impossible to get unless you have 4 people.
The fuck? Why is there 4 stars?
We tried 4 stars in the first level, and we couldn't even remotely close to doing it. I'm I think this is designed for 4 people. We were working at high efficiency as a unit, and we got not even half of the score. And I'm there's no fucking way that we can do this without 4 people.
Interesting.
So we just aimed for 3 stars on every level again. And I was that's lame.
Yeah, that's weird.
That said, if you play with 4 people in the first game, getting 3 stars on every level is extremely easy.
I would believe so, yeah.
Provided you're not all shitheads.
I've tried like one level before in single player, and it's really weird because you have to like switch to the other player because there's two. The game just does not work with one player.
You need two people or more for it, definitely.
It's not a game that's designed well for a single player.
That said, this is I would say, one of the best cooperative experiences I think I've ever played. Would you tend to agree with that?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Where would you rate that along with It Takes Two?
I'd say It Takes Two is a better game, but...
in different ways?
Yeah. So, like,
Okay.
It Takes Two is like a more complete game, where this is, like, very arcadey.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that... Well, I kind of enjoyed the amount of variety that was in It Takes Two over just doing the same thing over and over again. Because it's like, Overcooked can get a little bit tedious after a bit. Like, I wouldn't want to play 1 and 2 back to back. I'd play like one of them for 5 hours and then stop, and then play the other one for the 5 or 6 hours that it takes to finish, and then be done with that. It doesn't mechanically change too much, and a lot of the challenges you face are kind of similar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say that It Takes Two is probably a better game by comparison. But that said, like, Overcooked is probably still, like, it's one of the better co-op games. Like, Miranda and I played... Oh yeah, Fogs. I played Fogs. That was on Game Pass as well. I guess that wasn't talked about. That was in the last 2 weeks. That was, like, not even remotely as good as, like, playing Overcooked was with Miranda. So I won't elaborate on that at all, just because we're running on time anyway. If you have a spouse and you played It Takes Two with them and you thought that was fun, play Overcooked. It's also pretty fun. So.
Mm-hmm. And free this month for anyone who has...
I shouldn't say like a spouse. If you have like a sibling, a spouse, a roommate, just like somebody who you live with and enjoy spending time with,
and can boss around.
Play it with them.
No.
Yeah. Well, if you want 3 stars, first time. Yeah. I think one of the most interesting things about that game is how it manages to like create logistical problems that force you to constantly swap what you're doing.
Yep, swap what you're doing. A lot of communication's key.
Because, like, fundamentally, you could just have people running back and forth on stations, but they only give you a limited number of dishes to serve with. So you constantly have to do the dish chore, which is slow, extremely slow, which is what will constantly fuck up who's working on what.
Yes.
In co-op specifically, balancing what you're doing with making sure that you keep your 4 plates clean so you can keep putting food out is, like, extremely important.
Well, and like, the efficient part is like not grabbing 1 plate at a time. It's grabbing like 2 and cleaning them. But you gotta wait for that, and like maybe the timing will be all completely wrong. So it's like, no, I need this plate now, and you're like, wait, you waste time on that. It's like, no, you waste time.
Keeping your dishes clean is like, that's like the big determining factor with whether or not you actually get 3 stars on a level. I forget, is the magic themed level, is that in the first game or the second game? That must be in
the second. I don't remember it from the first.
Oh yeah, because you could throw in that one. It's got like doors that teleport all over the level. So Miranda and I were just whipping food all over the place.
That sounds pretty
and then
cool.
Teleporting around and like catching them mid-throw is just so stupid.
That does sound fun.
It's got like a few good ideas, but I still think that the game is better played in kind of like short or like a kind of single consistent burst, and you take like a break before you play the second one.
Mm-hmm.
Or you play it in like smaller play sessions so it doesn't get super duper repetitive.
Yeah, that's essentially how we're playing it. I think we did the first world and half of the second one, and the second half of the second world and the third world. That's where we've gotten to so far from the first game.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, with that wraps up our episode. Woohoo!
Here's to another year of podcasting, hopefully.
Yes, on to the second year. That's crazy to think about still.
It really is.
Like, I looked at the calendar, I was just like, yep, this has been a year, and I'm like, where did this time go? Anyway, you can listen to this podcast on multiple platforms, including Anchor, Spotify.
Spoofy.
Thank you. I was waiting for that. Stitcher, and Apple, and on YouTube now. So
Woohoo.
Feel free to subscribe to the channel. We will have that listed on Twitter and in the post that Frosty is going to do, along with the description of the podcast in general.
Yeah, I don't know. Just listen to wherever your favorite places. If you're already subscribed on one platform, then just stay there. If you're new, hey, welcome, and subscribe if you haven't already for your bi-weekly updates on when the Dickhead podcast gets posted.
Oh, is that the new name?
I mean, that's what I refer to it as on Twitter.
That's fair.
Bi-weekly Dickhead podcast.
You can follow myself at Javim Animation, that's Animation. Haven't really posted a whole lot, but that was because I was working hard on getting all the episodes prepped so that we could do this for the anniversary on YouTube. So hopefully getting back into art next week once I'm done editing the podcast for the 26th episode. So anyway, Steven, your stuff.
You can find me at FrostyLight on Twitter. That is basically a catch-all hub for where I post everything. Go read my blog, frostylight.ca. I post things there about video games. Jason had an article this past week that went up. He wrote about stupid video game editions, or special editions, rather.
And I only feel like I scratched the surface on that topic.
Yeah. I will say that was not what I was expecting based on your original pitch. When he pitched me the idea, it was like very serious, and then when he gave me the first draft of it, I'm like, Jason, this is satirical. What the fuck? And you're like, yeah, I didn't like how it was when it was super serious, so I made it funny instead. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I just wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, it was complete rework, so.
Whatever. It's fine. So yeah, go read the post that Jason wrote. Go read some of the stuff I wrote recently-ish. I wrote about how Pokemon Unite, or just in general, Pokemon makes a great theme for introducing new players to genres that they are not necessarily familiar or comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Looking through the lens of Pokemon Unite for MOBAs. Don't exactly have a bunch of other stuff in the works right now. I have ideas, but somebody keeps screaming at the top of their lungs and pissing all over my apartment. So I don't get a lot of time to myself. And when I do, I like to play Guilty Gear Strive so that I don't go batshit crazy. But look in the future, because there might be a post about Wildermyth, and there might be a post about Guilty Gear Strive, and there might be a post about controllers.
Oh, interesting.
Fascinating stuff. I assure you it is all going to be more interesting than I probably just made it sound. For art-related stuff, you can follow me on Instagram. I haven't really been posting or doing art. The art I have been doing, I hate, so just follow me on Twitter and read my blog. FrostyLight.ca.
Thank you all for joining us for this episode, and cheers to another year, and stay frosty.